Are you ready to learn the darkest secret of Billie Holiday's life? America's most famous jazz star's hidden friendship with New York Mafia boss Lucky Luciano didn't just change her music career, it completely transformed her life. This dangerous alliance both protected and destroyed Lady Day. And today, I'm going to tell you this untold true story. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel, because in the coming weeks, we'll be sharing even more shocking secrets from Billie Holiday's FBI files. On a cold winter night in 1940, when Lady Day took the stage at Harlem's most prestigious jazz club, the Cotton Club, there was a very special guest in the audience. The man sitting at the corner table wasn't just any music lover. Charles "Lucky" Luciano, the undisputed leader of the New York Mafia and America's most powerful crime boss. As he listened to Billie Holiday's voice that night, he had no idea that the friendship about to begin would change both their lives forever. The details of that night are still vivid in the memories of Cotton Club's former employees. When Billie Holiday stepped onto the stage, she displayed her usual mesmerizing presence. She had pinned her white gardenia in her hair, sparkling under the lights in her silver dress. But there was something different about her voice that night, as if she was singing for just one person, and she really was. When Luciano's eyes focused on her, Lady Day's entire world had changed. Luciano never forgot that night. Years later, when he would tell his close associates about that moment, his eyes would well up and his voice would tremble. "That voice killed me and brought me back to life," he would say. When Billie Holiday sang, it was like she was touching my soul. This emotional connection transformed what began as a relationship between two people into something far more than just a business partnership. Lucky Luciano's first encounter with Billie Holiday wasn't by chance. In fact, the Mafia boss had been having the young singer followed for weeks. The reason wasn't Lady Day's music, but something she possessed that was invaluable to Luciano's empire. The pain, abuse, and trauma Billie Holiday had experienced in her life made her the perfect source of information. Everyone in Harlem trusted her, shared their secrets with her, and most importantly, Billie Holiday was in a position where no one would suspect anything. This surveillance operation was carried out by Luciano's most trusted man, Giuseppe Dodo. Dodo, whose code name was Joe Adonis, had been recording Lady Day's every move for weeks. Everything was noted, from the time she woke up in the morning to when she went to bed at night, who she talked to, where she went, what she ate, what she drank. No detail was overlooked, but what stood out most in Dodo's reports was the intimate relationships Billie Holiday formed with people. Lady Day was a child who had grown up on the streets of Harlem. She had lived in the red light district, suffered greatly in her mother's absence. These experiences had made her extraordinarily empathetic. People could easily approach her, share their problems, and trust her. And Billie Holiday did nothing but listen. She never judged anyone or told their secrets to others. This quality made her more valuable than gold in Luciano's eyes. Because 1940s Harlem wasn't just the center of music and entertainment, but also where all of New York's dirty business took place. Drug trafficking, smuggling, illegal gambling, prostitution, everything revolved around here, and all the people involved in these operations trusted Lady Day. They told her their secrets, they shared their plans. None of them could imagine that every word from their beloved singer was reaching the Mafia boss. From their first meetings, Lucky Luciano developed a strange protective feeling toward Billie Holiday. This wasn't just a business relationship, it contained great respect, and perhaps even love. Luciano saw how the men in Lady Day's life treated her, and this drove him crazy. When he learned that Billie Holiday's manager John Levy was physically abusing her, Luciano's reaction was terrifying. A week later, Levy mysteriously disappeared from New York and was never seen again. The details of this incident were told years later by one of Luciano's men, Salvatore Maranzano. That night when they took Levy to the Hudson River, the Mafia boss had come there personally. "If you ever lay a hand on that woman again, I'll bury you alive," he had told Levy. But instead of being scared, Levy had cursed at him. At that moment, the light in Luciano's eyes had gone out. The next morning, Levy's body was found in the Hudson River. Billie Holiday was unaware of this incident. She only knew that her manager Levy had disappeared one day. During that period, she had told her close friend Lester Young, "It feels like someone is protecting me. I don't know who it is, but I always feel safe around here." Young would remember these words much later and understand what a dangerous game the singer was in the middle of. Luciano's interest in Billie Holiday grew day by day. He wasn't just gathering information from her, but also taking interest in every detail of her life. He had learned Lady Day's favorite flowers and would send white gardenias to her dressing room before every concert. Billie Holiday thought these came from fans. It would never occur to her that America's most dangerous man was sending these flowers. Their relationship was deepening gradually. Luciano had started coming to Lady Day's concerts regularly, of course without revealing himself, watching from a distance. Cotton Club owner Herman Stark had noticed this situation but didn't dare say anything. Having the mafia boss in his club was both a source of fear and prestige. In March 1941, they made their first direct contact. Billie Holiday had given a concert at the Apollo Theater, and when she came backstage, she found Luciano in her dressing room. At that moment, Lady Day's world stopped. Seeing America's most famous mafia boss in front of her both frightened and mesmerized her. Luciano, however, had been extremely polite. "There are a few people I admire when it comes to art, Miss Holiday," he had said. "You are one of them." That night, they had a conversation that lasted half an hour. They talked about the difficulties Billie Holiday faced, the injustices in the music industry. Luciano listened carefully and finally said this: "Everyone in this world needs a protector, especially talented people like you." Lady Day didn't fully understand what these words meant at the time, but this protection wasn't free. Billie Holiday was no longer just a singer, but also Luciano's eyes and ears. Cotton Club, Apollo Theater, Café Society, wherever she went, she listened carefully. Rival mafia families' plans, police operations, political developments, everything reached Luciano. Lady Day's dressing room had now become a center where secret meetings were held. No one suspected that mafia plans were being made in the famous singer's dressing room. Let me explain how this system worked, because it was truly a genius operation. Every Tuesday evening after Billie Holiday's concert at the Cotton Club, Luciano's men would come to her dressing room under the guise of flower service. Among these men were Vincent Mangano, Albert Anastasia, and sometimes Luciano's right-hand man, Frank Costello. To outsiders, they were just bringing flowers to the famous singer. In reality, she was passing on all the information she had gathered throughout the week. The information Billie Holiday collected was incredibly valuable. For example, in June 1941, she had learned of the Genovese family's plan to raid the Cotton Club and kill Luciano's men. Because she passed on this information, the operation failed, and the Genovese family suffered heavy losses. Or in 1942, she had learned that Police Commissioner Louis Valentine was planning a major operation in Harlem. Thanks to this, all of Luciano's operations could be moved elsewhere in time. One of the most interesting pieces of information was when Billie Holiday learned that the Federal Bureau of Investigation was keeping a file on her. Lady Day had started a romantic relationship with FBI agent Howard Jones. Jones had forgotten his duty, fallen in love with Billie Holiday, and was telling her about the FBI's plans. This information, of course, went directly to Luciano. Agent Jones's story had taken on a tragicomic dimension. The young agent, captivated by Billie Holiday's beauty, was violating professional ethics by telling her about the FBI's secret operations. While Lady Day was passing this information to Luciano, she felt very bad about herself, because she had real feelings for Jones. But this was the price of living under Luciano's protection. This double game continued until 1943. Billie Holiday would go out with the FBI agent during the day and pass information to the mafia boss at night. This situation was wearing her down psychologically. It was no coincidence that her alcohol and drug use increased during this period. The double life she was living was destroying her. This game fell apart at the beginning of 1944. When Jones's true identity was revealed, Billie Holiday was devastated. She realized that she had been used by both the FBI and Luciano. This betrayal wounded her deeply, and she could never fully trust anyone for the rest of her life. In 1942, there was a major turning point in Billie Holiday's career. When she started singing Strange Fruit, she began receiving death threats from the southern states. Ku Klux Klan members were trying to silence her. Under normal circumstances, Lady Day might not have been able to withstand these pressures, but lucky Luciano stepped in. The mafia boss used all his connections in the southern states to protect Billie Holiday. Some KKK members mysteriously disappeared, others were seriously injured. Behind her ability to continue singing Strange Fruit was Luciano's iron fist. These threats were no joke. The first letter from Alabama read, "Black woman, if you don't stop singing that song, we'll kill you and your family." At the end of the letter was the Ku Klux Klan symbol. When Billie Holiday received this letter, she started crying. Strange Fruit wasn't just a song for her.
It voiced the pain of lynched black people, but it also endangered her life. When Lucky Luciano learned about this letter, he was furious. "No one can threaten the woman I protect," he told his men. He immediately called his connections in the southern states: Carlos Marcello in New Orleans, Santos Traficante in Tampa, Sam Giancana in Chicago. All were ready to carry out Luciano's orders. The first strike was made against Alabama. A fire had broken out at the home of local KKK leader Robert Shelton at midnight. Of course, it wasn't a coincidence. The message that reached Shelton the next day was brief: "Don't touch Billie Holiday again. This is your last warning." When Shelton asked who the man delivering the message was, the answer was, "Greetings from Lucky Luciano."
But threats weren't just coming from the southern states. Even in New York, there were groups trying to silence Billie Holiday, especially an organization called the Irish American Unity Conference, claimed that Strange Fruit was anti-American propaganda. The leader of this organization, Patrick O'Malley, was calling for boycotts of Billie Holiday's concerts. O'Malley's story was instructive. In February 1943, while walking in Central Park, he was attacked by 5 men. When he woke up in the hospital, he found a note beside him: "Don't mess with Strange Fruit. This is your last warning." O'Malley never said a word about Billie Holiday after that day. Luciano's protection wasn't just physical. He also supported Lady Day in the media. By pressuring Frank Costello, who owned newspapers in New York, he ensured positive stories about Billie Holiday were published. Critic Joe Glazer was also under Luciano's control and constantly praised Lady Day's performances. The most striking example of how effective this protection system was occurred in May 1943. A group of KKK members from Mississippi had planned to raid Billie Holiday's concert in New York. But when they arrived in Harlem, Luciano's men were waiting for them. What happened that night was never explained. But no one returned to Mississippi. But this protection came at a price, and that price was Lady Day's freedom. She could no longer go anywhere without Luciano's permission. Concert schedules, recording dates, even her private life were all under the Mafia boss's control. When Billie Holiday realized this, it was too late. She was trapped in a golden cage, and the key to her cage was in Lucky Luciano's hand. The extent of this control was incredible. Billie Holiday's home phone was tapped. Luciano's men accompanied her everywhere she went. Every new person she met had to be approved by the Mafia boss first. Nothing spontaneous remained in Lady Day's life. Everything was planned in advance, every step calculated beforehand. The most painful part was the emotional dependency. Luciano wasn't just protecting Billie Holiday physically, but also supporting her emotionally. He was the only person there for Lady Day during her most difficult moments. In her problems with her mother, Sadie Holiday, in her lover's betrayals, in the music industry's injustices, Luciano always found solutions. This situation made Lady Day psychologically dependent. She could no longer make any decisions without Luciano. She couldn't even go shopping without saying, "Let me ask Lucky." This dependency weakened her and made her lose the ability to make her own decisions. Her close friends had noticed this change. Especially pianist Teddy Wilson said that Lady Day wasn't the same anymore. "It's like someone is telling her what to do, what to say," Wilson would say. "She's not herself anymore." But no one knew the reason for this. The most tragic part was that Billie Holiday didn't want to escape from this situation, because she felt safe under Luciano's protection. No man in her life had ever valued her this much. This emotional security was more valuable to her than physical freedom. By the end of 1943, the extent of this control had increased even more. Billie Holiday could no longer go out alone without Luciano's permission. Before every concert, she would talk to the Mafia boss and ask which songs she should sing. Even her repertoire was under Luciano's control. During this period, Lady Day's alcohol consumption increased seriously. She had started drinking a bottle of whiskey a day. This wasn't just escape, but also rebellion. Her drinking was the only thing not under Luciano's control, and she was using it to the fullest. In mid-1943, the situation became even more complicated. When the FBI started following Billie Holiday, they were actually trying to reach Lucky Luciano. Federal agents were aware of Lady Day's mafia connections and planned to use her to catch Luciano. Billie Holiday found herself caught between two fires. On one side, the mafia boss she remained loyal to, on the other, the country's most powerful law enforcement agency. The FBI's Billie Holiday operation was carried out under the codename Operation Nightingale. Special Agent Robert Anderson was in charge of this operation. Anderson had developed a very special plan to catch Lady Day. The FBI would first prove that Billie Holiday was using drugs, then arrest her and force her to talk about Luciano. Anderson's plan was this: they would infiltrate Billie Holiday's close circle, document her drug use, then capture her. But the protective circle around Lady Day was so tight that this seemed almost impossible. Luciano's men were always there. This is where Howard Jones came into play. Young and handsome, Jones managed to approach Billie Holiday and start a romantic relationship with her. Lady Day didn't know that Jones was an FBI agent. He had told her he was a music critic. This relationship was very valuable for both the FBI and Luciano. While Jones was trying to get information about the Mafia from Billie Holiday, Lady Day was also learning about the FBI's plans from him. Jones, in his double agent role, was unknowingly serving Luciano as well. This triple game continued for months. While Jones was documenting that Billie Holiday was using drugs, he was also falling in love with her. Lady Day, meanwhile, both loved Jones and remained loyal to Luciano. This situation put her in a very difficult position. The most interesting part was that most of the information the FBI obtained about Luciano was wrong. Because Billie Holiday determined the information she gave Jones after consulting with Luciano. The Mafia boss was spreading disinformation through Lady Day to mislead the FBI. This game fell apart at the beginning of 1944, when Jones's true identity was revealed. Billie Holiday was devastated. She realized that she had been used by both the FBI and Luciano. This betrayal wounded her deeply, and she could never fully trust anyone for the rest of her life. This is where the most dramatic part of the story begins. In February 1944, Lucky Luciano's arrest completely turned Lady Day's life upside down. In the absence of the Mafia boss, the protective walls around Billie Holiday collapsed. Rival families had found the opportunity they had been waiting for years. The Genovese family especially targeted Lady Day, because her closeness to Luciano endangered the family's secrets. Even the moment of Luciano's arrest was dramatic. That night, Billie Holiday was giving a concert at the Apollo Theater. FBI agents and police officers were waiting for Luciano backstage. When the Mafia boss came to watch Lady Day's concert, he fell into the trap. When he was arrested, Billie Holiday was on stage and unaware of what was happening. When the concert ended and she came to her dressing room, she learned about the situation. Frank Costello had given her the news. "Lucky has been arrested. You're not safe anymore." These words destroyed Lady Day's world. Her protector was gone, and she was now alone. Just 48 hours after Luciano's arrest, the first threatening letter arrived. Men from the Genovese family, from Vito Genovese, wrote openly, "Where Lucky isn't, there's no safe place for you." This wasn't just an empty threat. The Genovese family wanted to change the balance of power in Luciano's absence. The change in Billie Holiday's life began immediately. She could no longer perform at the Cotton Club because club owner Herman Stark was under pressure from the Genovese family. The Apollo Theater closed its doors to her. Even Cafe Society didn't want her anymore. New York's biggest clubs were closing their doors to Lady Day one by one. The most painful part was how her old friends changed their attitudes. Musicians, singers, club owners who had previously stood by her, they all suddenly stayed away from Billie Holiday, because she was now dangerous. Being around her meant incurring the wrath of the Genovese family. During this process, Billie Holiday's psychological conditions seriously deteriorated. She couldn't leave home for days, constantly watching the street from her window. She had developed paranoia. She perceived every sound, every movement as a threat directed at her. Her sleep pattern was disrupted. She couldn't sleep at night and would faint from exhaustion during the day. Just 3 weeks after Luciano's arrest, the first assassination attempt on Billie Holiday's life took place. While returning to her home in Harlem, she was attacked by unidentified individuals. Fortunately, neighbors arrived and Lady Day narrowly escaped. But now she lived in fear every day. Without Lucky Luciano's protection, she felt naked and defenseless. It was no coincidence that Billie Holiday's drug use increased during this period. Heroin didn't just make her forget her pain, it was also a way to maintain her connection to the mafia world. Drug dealers brought her information about who was targeting her, which families were after her. Paradoxically, the substance that was destroying her was also keeping her alive. In 1945, the situation got even worse. When Lucky Luciano was exiled to Italy, Billie Holiday's last hope was extinguished. There was no one left to protect her. While the FBI arrested her for drug use, the mafia also saw her as unreliable. Caught between two sides, Lady Day was left alone and helpless. After Luciano's exile, Billie Holiday's career rapidly collapsed. She could no longer sing at prestigious clubs because the mafia,
who owned these clubs, thought she was unreliable. Record companies canceled their contracts. Concert organizers didn't want her. Lady Day found herself singing in cheap bars in Harlem. The most tragic part was this: Billie Holiday was still loyal to Lucky Luciano. She kept the letters coming from Italy, tried to save money for him. She believed that the mafia boss would return one day, and the old days would come back. This hope was the only thing keeping her going, but it also prevented her from facing reality. The 1950s were a complete nightmare period for Billie Holiday. While trying to live without Lucky Luciano's protection, she constantly felt under threat. She had developed paranoia. She thought everyone was following her, everyone was trying to turn her in. And unfortunately, she was often right. FBI agents were constantly following her. Her home phones were tapped. She was photographed everywhere she went. But even worse, the mafia was also watching her. Because Lady Day knew too much, and there was a possibility she might reveal these secrets before dying. Even in 1959, while spending her last days at Metropolitan Hospital, Billie Holiday wasn't alone. FBI agents and mafia guards were keeping watch outside her room. Everyone was trying to hear her last words or get her final confession. Lady Day was aware of this situation and didn't say a single word until her death. After Billie Holiday's death, the only telegram from Lucky Luciano contained these 3 words: "Forgive me, lady." When this telegram reached Lady Day's sister Sadie, she understood that his relationship with Lucky Luciano wasn't just business. There was a deep bond between them, perhaps even love. Documents that emerged years later showed that Lucky Luciano went after those he suspected of killing Billie Holiday after her death. The men he sent from Italy to America found everyone who had harmed Lady Day in her final years. This revenge operation lasted 2 years and resulted in the deaths of at least 7 people. This story shows us that sometimes protection can be the greatest curse. While Lucky Luciano tried to protect Billie Holiday, he actually destroyed her. Lady Day's talent made her famous, but her mafia connections killed her. If she had never met Lucky Luciano, she might still be alive today. Billie Holiday's story isn't just the story of a singer, but also a reflection of America's darkest period. Racism, mafia, drugs, corruption, everything came together in Lady Day's life and ultimately destroyed her. But Billie Holiday's legacy isn't just her music. Her story is a painful example of how the powerful use the weak, how protection turns into control, and how freedom is lost. If you enjoyed this video and are curious about other secrets in Billie Holiday's life, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Next week, we'll share other shocking truths from Lady Day's FBI files that no one knows about. Tell me in the comments, do you think Lucky Luciano was really trying to protect Billie Holiday, or was he using her?